So, good afternoon, everyone, and hello, Adrian.
Hi.
So I'd like to start this chat about talking about Boston as a hub for innovation and why Bayer, the CropScience division of Bayer particularly, chose Boston as a city to innovate in agriculture. Because if we think about Boston, I think to many of us, the first thing that comes in mind is not innovation in agriculture, that's for sure.
At least it wasn't. But I think that's really rapidly changing. I mean, to know why we're here, you just have to look out of the window and see this, fantastic skyline and consider the, amount of life science companies like Bayer who are already installed here, to look at the really exciting startup community that is evolving here. And, look at the VC partnerships, but of course you just look down that way and you see some world-class academic institutions. And there's so much innovation coming out of Boston. Until now, perhaps, until the last few years, that's been primarily pushed into the pharmaceutical field. But now we're seeing a lot of that coming into agriculture as well. And it's either being transferred from other industries like pharmaceuticals, or it's coming directly into agriculture. And it's a really, really exciting place to be. That's one reason. The other reason that is more general is, and a lot of it has been discussed this morning, I think companies like Bayer need to step up and be seen in these types of environments where we're talking with consumers, people working in urban environments. As we heard before, of the 100% of us that eat, only 2% are producing the food. So it's not really surprising that we're in a society where there is a disconnect between food production and food consumption. And I think it's a role of farmers, of companies like Bayer, and all of us that are working in the agricultural food sector to come out and explain what we do, but also to listen to consumers and then adjust accordingly.
Okay. And I'd like to expand a little bit on the startup environment that you have in Boston here, the vibrant startup environment, together with the institutes, university institutes like MIT, for example, that are starting to innovate again in agriculture. So Bayer is this very big company, and of course we all know that you are kind of in agreement with Monsanto, but at the same time, you also, particularly in the Boston area, you're starting to invest in startup or to have joint venture with startup, like for example, the joint venture that you're having with Ginkgo Bioworks. So how do you see Bayer CropScience strategically positioned in the Boston area, and what do you think is the role that you're going to play with the hub? So how do you think that's going to play out?
Well, as a company, we have to play different roles. There's no kind of one-size-fits-all, but it comes down to a basic belief that we need to collaborate, that no one company or one entity can solve all of the issues that we've been talking about this morning. How do we feed the additional couple of billion people that are expected to arrive on this planet in the next few years? Do that when there's no additional agricultural land available? How do we do that when there is such concern about how food is produced, when there is such concern about the effects on the environment? So, all of this is really important to us. And when you look here in Boston, again, there is a lot going on. I mean, to be honest, probably 5 years ago, we wouldn't be here because, as you said, I mean, the agricultural sector is quite new here. There's been people working in this area for a number of years, but it's only now that we really see this kind of ecosystem of venture capitalists, of startups, of university professors working in this sector. And so we want to be part of that. And so we do work. We've created a joint venture with Ginkgo Bioworks, which we're incredibly excited about because we really believe that with their expertise and the expertise that we have within Bayer, we can really bring new types of products which can really support sustainable agriculture. We work with a lot of venture capital groups here in the Boston area, like Flagship Pioneering, like Antera. And they're working with startup companies like SIBO, who are also represented here. So there's an awful lot going on that we want to be part of.
And so when we talk about innovation in agriculture nowadays, we have many different fields where we can address innovation. For example, if I'm thinking about myself like 5 years ago and was thinking about innovation in agriculture, I was thinking about basically innovation in the tools that are used for agriculture. And then when I started to look more from my perspective to agriculture, I started to see that there's a lot of innovation going on in microbiology, in material science, in genetics, even satellite images, use of big data analysis. So what do you think are the big challenges that Bayer will face in the future in order to manage this interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary way of thinking about of agriculture, because from a university perspective, of course, is a very interesting and vibrant time to be innovating in agriculture, right? Because we can collaborate with many other people, we see a lot of exchanges of information, but from a company perspective, how would that work?
Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago, we were pretty much in what we would call a closed innovation system. So we were working on our products, we were anticipating what farmers' needs might be. We're in a completely different world right now. I mean, we work across industries, as you said, satellite imagery, a lot of different areas that we need to interact with to come up with products that help, farmers deal with the issues they have in the field, but also to produce products which are acceptable to consumers. So it's really working across all of these different areas in order to be successful. Again, no one company, no one approach is going to do it on their own. And it's going to really take a coming together of like minds, but thinking in different ways to be successful.
And if we go back to the theme of Boston and doing innovation in a city that is well known for innovation in material science, electronics, and genetics. So how do you see the future of agriculture in a world that tends to go towards big cities rather than in a world where people are living in the country? And how do you see the future of agriculture, particularly in the rural areas of the world? If you're thinking about, for example, sub-Saharan Africa or Southeast Asia, there's a lot of opportunities there to innovate in agriculture, but there are also big societal problems because you have people that are leaving the countryside to go in these big cities. And so that's for sure is an opportunity, but how do you see that?
Yeah, so I mean, Caleb, I think, was talking about 1 billion farmers, and
Sure.
it's across the world, in every different type of farming, in every geography, we have an issue of people leaving the farm. And one of the things that I think is really heartening to see is with this fantastic story that agriculture has right now in terms of the need to increase productivity, in terms of the need to protect the planet. We are actually attracting people back, or people are starting to get excited about agriculture again. It's becoming sexy again, if you like. And with some of these technologies, digitalization, I think younger people will be attracted to that because, as was said on the previous panel, farming in 20 years is going to look very, very difficult,
Sure.
different to farming today. But again, it's going to take collaboration across so many sectors. It's going to take private industry bringing new products to market. It's going to take academics coming up with new research ideas and new tools. It's going to take NGOs who are helping to actually get products into the hands of farmers in areas where it's most needed. So again, it's not going to be one group or one approach. It's going to be a collaboration across multiple different sectors.
Okay. And keep going with the startup theme. So the typical startup scenario, particularly in the Boston area, are these undergrad students that are in a garage and are inventing something, right? So how do you think that, what would the message be to these students? How do you think, what are the tools that you think universities, but also big companies can provide to these students to be able to start up companies that are germane to the agricultural world? How do we need to teach them? How do we need to reach out to them in order to show them that there's a huge need for innovation in agriculture, but at the same time, we also need to provide them the tools, right? Because if you think about innovation in informatics, that's very simple because everybody has a computer, can write a code. So how do you see that coming for agriculture in a urban?
So we need to get the best minds into agriculture in whatever sector they're working in right now. We need the best statisticians, we need the best geneticists, we need the best engineers who actually have a choice of working in many different industries. So one of the things is we need to tell the story of agriculture, and that's what I believe forums like this are really good about doing, is like exposing the opportunities and the challenges that we have in agriculture right now. But again, the infrastructure here in Boston that's already been developed for other industries, like you mentioned, is there also for agriculture. The venture capital funding, the mentorship, these types of things are available here, and people need to access those and reach out.
Yeah, and so I think that definitely there would need a need to have industries and university working together to show students basically new pathway for innovation that are germane to agriculture, because we're going towards this world that is going to explode in terms of population. And we heard there are problems in soil degradation, being able to increase the output while minimizing the agricultural input. And so I think I really thank you for this very nice chat, and I hope that Bayer will be very well positioned in the city and will thrive.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you very
excited to
much.
be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.